Welcome, Cigar Rebels, to our podcast. We love to explore luxurious foods, bourbon, and premium cigars. I'm Melanie.
And I'm Kevin. And we're here tonight to talk about our passion for bourbon and why we chose Cigar Rebels.
Absolutely. Before we jump into all of those topics, we want to introduce our guest and our host, Tony Lopez, here today. Welcome. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you both for the invite. I'm super excited to be here, especially to talk about two topics that I absolutely love.
Yeah, before we get any further, let's go ahead and introduce the cigar that we're smoking tonight. Tonight, we're going to be smoking the 2025 release, Amazon Basin. We're super excited to have this cigar. And Mel, why don't you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, the wrapper on this is going to be Sumatran with a Nicaraguan binder and then Brazilian, Colombian, and Dominican fillers. Super excited to cut this. I already cut mine. Tony and Kevin, if you guys are getting any notes, smells, anything about the wrapper in particular you want to share?
Yeah, there's a great spice to it, like a baking spice, almost a nutmeg as you to a draw, that just really fills your whole mouth as you're taking a cold draw.
The wrapper feels a little oily.
Yeah.
Leather, earthy.
Absolutely. It's got great aroma. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's great. No, go for it.
Yeah, this is one of those cigars that's been difficult to find. We were very blessed to get 18 boxes early on in the shipment this year. This is the end of it. The box that I had is the last of our supply. And so we're excited to enjoy it here tonight with Tony on our live stream. I'm going to go ahead and get my cigar lit and get this process going.
Yes. And so here at the Cigar Rebel, we love pairing a good cigar with a good bourbon or a good whiskey. And so Tony has actually picked us a very special bourbon for tonight. And so as soon as he gets his cigar lit, I would love to know what you picked for us, why you picked it. And there's no rush. You can finish lighting your cigar, get a good draw on it.
Absolutely. So I came across a sample of a Pappy Van Winkle 15-year-old, which is a really hard bottle to find for those of you guys who drink bourbon or know anything about bourbon. It's one of the more famous bottles, super rare, super expensive if you get it. I actually traded a sample of what's one of my favorites, which is a Willet Purple Top. Traded it for this sample. I've been lucky enough to have it, and I thought it was a great bourbon to share today.
And we're excited to try it. Absolutely. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. Thank you so much for trading one that you loved and sharing this with us.
Absolutely. One of the best things about being friends with Tony is all the amazing things that he shares. He is such a generous man.
100%.
That's what bourbon and cigars are for.
Absolutely.
Share with friends and make great memories and stories.
Yeah.
Man, this is the first time I've ever had this, and it is spectacular.
The nose on it is phenomenal. Some friends and I went to a bourbon event in Houston a few months ago, and we did a full lineup of Pappy, and the Pappy 15 was absolutely my favorite. Just has great nose, palate, just finish on it it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, Dean said Pappy's expensive. We definitely agree with that, Dean. Good to see you, sir.
Yes, good to see you, Dean. That's hilarious.
Oh, man. So the pair with the cigar is amazing. This Amazon Basin with the spice and the aroma, just the fullness of the smoke that's coming off of it with that Pappy's is exceptional. I wouldn't have paired those two together. Of course, this is the first time for me to have this particular pour. So excited to see how these progress together today. And, Tony, we're super excited to have you here with us today on our first episode because of your passion for bourbon, but also your passion for cooking. And that's something we've talked a lot about is how much you love cooking, how it helps you unwind, your passion for bourbon and hunting for bourbon. And those are something that me and Mel both love. Of course, you're on a completely different level on both of those. But Mel, why don't you get us started tonight? Tell us about your love of cooking and where that came from.
Yeah, so I grew up, my mom was Italian, and so we had a lot of traditional Italian food. So I feel like, not that I'm an Italian food snob, but there's very few Italian restaurants I will actually like go and really enjoy, because most of the stuff I can just make at home. But when I was younger, she'd be cooking dinner, and she wouldn't ask me once I was a teenager, because teens can be off doing their own thing. She wouldn't ask me to help her, but she would just be like, will you just sit here and will you just watch and talk to me while I'm cooking? You don't have to watch, just talk to me while I'm cooking, give me some conversation. And I didn't realize until I was much older that just by sitting there and observing and watching, just talking to her about my day, that I would be able to take that into my adult life and just kind of know how to do all of those things secondhand. So that was something. I love baking even more so than cooking, but I don't always follow the rules with baking. People are like, you've got to be so specific. Sometimes I'm like, just throw it in there. The worst that's going to happen is it's not going to turn out good. But usually you can adjust a couple things and it's fine. So that's kind of, I would say I cook probably 3 or 4 times most weeks, unless we're traveling, which is quite
Absolutely.
a bit, or something along those lines. So
you made some amazing muffins this week with Carb Quick, which was amazing, filled with strawberries and chocolate. I love sweets, but cannot eat them very well. So she made some amazing sweets, and I've been enjoying them the last couple of days. We didn't bring anything for you, Tony. I'm sorry.
Making me hungry.
I know we're going to have to bring more. So, Tony, as we said earlier, you really like to use cooking as a way to unwind. Tell us about that and how your passion for cooking developed.
So it really has just taken time. I didn't really plan on enjoying to cook. It just turned into one of those things, it's kind of like bourbon. When I share bourbon, like this bottle or this sample, or when I cook something, I always enjoy watching people react. If it's something that I'm pretty sure it's going to be good, I just enjoy the reaction. And so when you experience that, it makes you want to get even better. And so we've, my wife and I, throughout the years, have hosted a lot. We've been lucky to have a big group of friends and had friends over, and somehow I ended up just turning into the guy that would cook. And one thing I like to do is when I go to a restaurant, I try something new. I try to break apart the flavors, try to figure out what ingredients they use, and then I like to come home and try to recreate it. And it's never the same. It's always different. But just getting anywhere close is always it's a good feeling, knowing that you went somewhere, you tasted it, you have no idea what it was or what they use. You recreate it, and you can share it with somebody and see them enjoy it. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, it's amazing. One of the things you make absolutely the best is your grilled pizza. Tell us about your pizza.
So that's actually one of the easiest things to make. Usually when we're out here hanging out, smoking, and drinking bourbon, I try to find something that's easier, or something I can prepare for. And I don't remember how I started making these, but what I'll do is I'll buy naan, like Indian bread, and I like to make. And actually, this started because my daughters are not crazy about marinara sauce. Probably the only two kids that I know that don't like just traditional pizza, and so we quickly learned they liked the creamy Parmesan sauce that a lot of restaurants will make, and that's one of the things that I use a lot. I cook a lot. Going back to influences, I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time in France. I have a lot of friends over there, and they actually taught me some of their local dishes. But that creamy sauce is something that's typical of that area, that region, and so I use it a lot with dishes. And I decided to make a sauce that I could put on this naan, and then just throw cheese and whatever toppings you want. And I did that a few times, and for some reason, everybody loves it.
That's
it's super
great.
easy to make, and I think I've made it probably more than anything else on the grill.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of my favorites. And the other day I was talking about changing it up a little bit. And some of our friends jumped all over me and said, they would ruin me if I ruined the pizza. And so it's a popular hit of what you do. My love for cooking started when I was 14, when I went to work for Squares Barbecue. Started as a dishwasher, worked my way up through the block and running the pit and being a pit master. And again, 18-year-old kid wasn't a pit master, just thought I knew what I was doing. But that's really expanded over my life to where now I love to make dry rubs and wet rubs and smoke things. And so I'm not a great cook, but I love to play and come up with recipes. And there's some good winners, and sometimes there's not. I smoked a roast this week that did okay. So it was kind of drying out a little bit. So I ended up making a wet rub for it and then kind of bathing it in there for the last hour. And it turned out okay. But it really is just kind of a shoot from the hip kind of deal, trying to get something that tastes good off the smoker. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, Mel, I didn't realize you had that Italian, whatever it is, cooking. And so one of my favorite things to cook is I like to hand roll my own pasta from scratch, and I like making my own sauces. So whether it's like a meat sauce or any cream sauce, whatever, I like starting from scratch. Sometimes it takes 5-6 hours, just to make something that's good, but it's worth it at the end. So I'll have to make some Italian dish and have you critique it.
Oh, I wouldn't critique it. I mean, I feel like anytime it's like home cooked, it just already elevates it up, just because Italian food, I guess it's all types of food, but when you're really comfortable with it, you can just you can put in what you want, and you can kind of experiment with it and critique it and make it your own. And so I feel like you're doing grilling and you're doing smoking and you're just kind of doing it how you want. Like you're following a recipe kind of, but really you're doing what you think would be good. In a lot of ways, it's like blending cigars. So
absolutely. So Roper with this today saying he's smoking the CAO BX3, a very close relative of this Amazon Basin and a little Amity Lee tonight that he won recently in a raffle, which is an awesome thing to do. And so one thing I want to make a comment on it, and Dean commented in the comments that, not everyone drinks alcohol. So what's some other things you might pair with a good cigar if maybe you're not drinking alcohol that night, or you simply don't drink it as a whole? Any thoughts?
So for me, I like coffee in the morning. I try to only drink coffee until like maybe 2:00, because after that I'm just getting older and it keeps me up all night. But generally sparkling water also I've found pairs really well for me with cigars, because it keeps my palate clean and it just helps me be able to smoke multiple cigars a day without having too much of an aftertaste.
Absolutely. Anything else you drink other than bourbon?
Just bourbon for me.
Just bourbon.
Maybe water. No, I try not to drink a lot of soda. But I have heard from a lot of people that root beer and some like Coca-Cola, Dr. Peppers sometimes pair up really well with cigars.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite things is a zero sugar root beer or a zero sugar cream soda. And if I'm drinking a cream soda, what I really want to find is one of those craft bottled cream sodas. And there's only a handful of them with zero sugar. But if you can get one of those, or the original diet cream soda, it's now called zero sugar, but the can still says original diet cream soda. Amazing. It's a light tin can that's kind of a tannish color, and it's amazing with a cigar. And again, it's got to be the right cigar. A Maduro cigar and a cream soda doesn't go well together. I would rather at that point drink a coffee or a chai tea or something like that. Have a good buddy who drinks a lot of sweet tea with his coffee, and so that's with his cigars. And so that's one of those things that's kind of a good opportunity to do something other than alcohol.
Yeah. So one quick question, because I know both of you guys grill and both of you guys like to smoke things. I don't do much of either of those, but what would you say, do you like to do more? Would you rather grill or smoke? If you had to choose, you could only do one for the rest of your lives.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It's easy for me. I would grill. I love to smoke, but smoke, you end up having 3 or 4 flavor complexities that you can work with. With grilling, I can really go for a slow low and then a high sear, or reverse that. There's so many different options with like burgers and steaks. On a smoking, you're trying to build that char, you're trying to build that bark. With the sausage, you're trying to get that smoke infiltrated. So I like to do both, and I do a lot of both. But I would definitely grilling would be my.
I'd have to agree. It's it's a little more diverse as far as what we can do with it. I guess smoking I enjoy when I'm cooking for like a big crowd, or a group of friends. It's a little bit easier. You throw a brisket in there, you know, pork butt, sausage, whatever. There's been nights where we're out here hanging out, smoking cigars, drinking bourbon, and I'll just throw some some sausage in the smoker, and it's easy, right? Just kind of just set it and walk away. But I agree with you, Kevin. I think grilling is probably the one thing I wouldn't be able to deal without. You can do pretty much anything: steaks, fish, chicken. But you can even throw wood chips in your grill and get a little smoke if you want to get that extra layer of flavor.
Yep, absolutely. Well, guys, we're going to go to break. We'll be right back in just a couple of minutes.
We fell in love with cigars not because of the flavors or smoking experience or perceived status, but because it allows barriers to fall between other humans and build deeper connections. For that reason, we've been super intentional to curate a space where people can find community and enjoyment with others, and cigars just happen to be the way we're doing it. For that reason, we are thrilled to be the one and only cigar retail store and lounge in downtown Lufkin. A good story is one of the most powerful tools used to connect with another human. Sharing stories fades out differences and highlights similarities found in the details, or with the storyteller. Over the years, we have seen some of the best stories told over cigars, and thus, new friendships are made, passions shared, encouragement given, and so much more. The impact storytelling has on the human connection is why we've decided to name our store and lounge Stories. Because behind every good cigar and conversation is an even better story.
Source Elevate is a consulting firm that focuses on providing resources, insight, and experience to elevate your performances. Our team's 30-plus years of experiences in executive leadership positions provide the foundation of knowledge that we provide to our clients. Allow us to elevate your company's mission, vision, and objectives over short, mid, and long-term initiatives that drive results and source new opportunities.
A huge thank you to our sponsors, Tony and Kevin. Now that we are a little bit inside our cigars and our bourbon, how are they pairing for you? What flavor notes are you guys getting?
Well, honestly, it's a little difficult to pull out flavor notes. I'm trying to keep up with our first live stream, some of the comments, but definitely still getting that baking spice. There's a little bit of that light leather that I'm getting on the retro hell, or when I'm on the finish of this cigar. And then with the bourbon, honestly, the complexity of the Pappies is way out of my league. So thank you again so much for sharing. It's such an honor to drink this with you guys. But the pairing's amazing. It's very complimentary to me. When you have pairings, you either have a complementary or a contradictory. These two pair really well together. And there are times that I want a contradictory, like a good Connecticut with a strong coffee. Very contradictory complexities, but just make the perfect experience. This seems to complement really, really well.
It works. So I didn't really talk about the mash bill with Pappy 15. Buffalo Trace has 5 mash bills. A lot of people think it's only 4, but there's 5. The reason one of them's not talked about is because it's their high rye, and they only make one bottle, which is the E.H. Taylor rye. It's the only bottle that comes out of that mash bill, but they have their wheated mash bill. And so Pappy originally started in the old Stitzelweller distillery. And then after they shut down, I can't remember the exact year. I want to say it's like around 1990-ish, 94-ish. Don't quote me on that. They moved over to Buffalo Trace. And so Buffalo Trace uses their wheated mash bill. They don't really disclose the percentage of wheat to corn and barley, but it's those 3. It doesn't have any rye. Even though you almost get some rye flavors, there's a little bit of, a spice, baking spice there at the end. It's at, the proof is 107, which is it's up there. It's not, like cask strength. I really enjoy high proof bourbons. Just over the years, I've developed a palate for breaking down those really high cask strength barrel proof bourbons. But no, I think for the money, if you can find it at MSRP, which should be around $150, buy it all day long. Problem is you can't find it. Secondary, they start at $1,300, $1,500 and up, and some people will pay that money for it, unfortunately, and makes it really hard for people like us to buy it.
The rest of the suffer, right?
That's right.
Yeah, where were we? We were somewhere traveling, and they had a couple different bottles of this, and we asked what a shot would be, and I can't remember, but it was more than I would ever probably pay for a shot.
So I asked him, just curious, they had a Pappy's 12 and a Pappy's 15, and I said, hey, what's the price point on a shot or a pour? And he said at 1 ounce, it started at 800.
Ooh.
And so, and while we were there, 5 different guys came in and got a pour. And so it was one of those places where there's a bunch of guys closing business deals coming in to celebrate, probably put it on the business card. But while we were there on business, it wasn't in our budget to have one, let alone 4 or 5.
If it's a tax write-off, it changes it a little bit. Still, that's a little too steep.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Tony, you kind of started talking about bourbon a little bit there, and obviously you can tell you're passionate. Tell us about how you became passionate about bourbon and the bourbon hunt.
So you've heard me tell this story, but it all started with one bottle, and it was I actually brought it down. It's not this bottle, but it's Thomas H. Handy. It's also a Buffalo Trace product. It's on their BTAC line. BTAC is Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. And my brother-in-law lives in Oklahoma City, and he got into bourbon a little bit before I did. And I knew he was into it, so I was going to go visit him, hang out for the weekend, and wanted to take a nice bottle of bourbon. And so I went to a local store, one of our mom and pop places close to where we live. And they had this bottle sitting on the counter for $107, which I thought was really high. Because back then I was drinking like Basil Hayden, Jack Daniels, just good bourbon, but I wasn't really into it. So anyways, I bought the bottle, and somehow I forgot to take it with me, which ended up being a blessing or a curse. I don't know. When I came back, he asked me to send him a picture because he couldn't believe that I had a Thomas H. Handy. He thought it was just a regular Sazerac. So I sent him a picture, and he was like going crazy. So a few weeks later, we went on a trip to Crystal Beach, rented a beach house, and there's a liquor store down there that I go to a lot, the owner, Jack. And so bought a lot of bourbon, and I took that bottle of Handy, and I told my brother-in-law, I said, we're going to crack it open, and we're going to drink it. We're going to kill it. If it's that good, I want to drink it. And he stopped me from opening it and talked me into at least putting it out in his bourbon group to see if anybody would want to do a trade. So I decided to, and he came back with a couple offers. One of them was, which is the one I took, they gave me a bottle of Blanton's, a bottle of Weller 12, a bottle of Weller Antique 107 that was a barrel pick, and
Some great bottles.
Can't remember, 2 more bottles. It was like $800 worth of bourbon for that one bottle that I paid 107 for. And so, it took me about 5 minutes, and I said, well, okay, those are all great bottles, and I've never had most of them. So I went ahead and traded, and that just it gave me the itch. It got me going, and it started with, 1 bottle to 5 bottles. I just recently counted. I have a bourbon room upstairs above my garage. I'm not going to tell you my address, but I counted the other day. I'm 12 short of 700 bottles. And most of the bottles that I have are allocated, hard to find, barrel picks, just stuff that's good, that's a little harder to either find or consistently find on the shelf. So it's a passion that I have now. My wife absolutely hates it. I hope she doesn't see this podcast because now she's gonna know how many bottles I have. I do keep a lock on that room, but no, that's really how it started, and it's one of those things. Once you start, you can't stop. I think every other month, I tell myself I'm going to quit buying, and it just hasn't happened at all.
Yeah.
Actually, just bought 4 bottles today. Hopefully, we'll be here by Friday.
Really?
Do you have a kind of a favorite? Not that you have to pick one, maybe like between 1 and 5. Like, is there 1 or 2 that you just love?
So it's the one that I'm drinking now. I'm on
Okay.
my second pour.
Okay.
I mentioned Willet Purple Top earlier. It's this one. This is the 9-year, I believe.
Okay.
Yes, this is the 9-year. It's a
I
barrel
need to
pick
mention
from
that.
Specs.
Yeah.
Willet it's a large distillery in Kentucky, but they still consider themselves as craft. They only crank out around 60-65 barrels a day. When you compare them to Buffalo Trace, Angels Envy, Maker's Mark, whoever, I mean they're pumping out thousands a day. So when you look at the numbers, Willet really is only doing a handful, but I don't really consider them a craft distillery anymore. But everything they put out, I love. I like the Rise, but these purple tops are absolutely phenomenal. And I would put the Willet. I have 3 Willet purple tops, and I would put any of those 3 up against any Pappy, and I would walk. If you put a Pappy and a Willet purple top next to each other, I would always go for the Willet, hands down.
Wow.
That's
Awesome.
amazing.
Awesome. So with that, talking about, allocated and hunting for bourbon bottles, what advice or tips would you give? I know a lot of people who are starting that journey of wanting to look for more allocated or more special bottles. What tips, tricks, things could help them do that?
Well, the biggest trick is you have to be patient and you have to spend a lot of time hunting. If you live close to a liquor store, make a connection with the owner. That's probably the best thing you could do is just become friends with the owner, go in there, and don't just go in and ask for something allocated. Go in there and help them out. It's a small mom and pop shop. Most likely, make that connection, buy bourbon off the shelf that you're going to enjoy, and help them out. And if you help them out, typically they'll help you out. And once you build those connections, it makes it a lot easier because when they get allocated bottles, they'll contact you, they'll call you.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those things. It's a circle of life, right? You help me out, I help you out. We're all happy. And everybody wins. And the other thing is just, again, be patient. For me, I found that when I found the best bottles, it's when I'm really not planning on finding them. When I go out to bourbon hunt, I typically come back disappointed. But if I'm out on a random errand or I'm, traveling somewhere and I just stop by just for the heck of it, I usually score really well. And that's just the way life works, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we were in New Hampshire almost 7 months ago now, going to just some random liquor store for something to drink that night.
Mm-hmm.
And you ran across something pretty special that night. Tell us about that a little bit.
So, I was like a kid in a candy shop. I remember I had 3 bottles that were from that area that I'd never tried, and I wanted to try them. But then I walked across, and I saw they had back then the Heaven Hill Grain to Glass had just come out, and I could not find those anywhere. And of course, they had 2 of them there. So I went and put 2 other bottles back because I had a weight limit with my luggage. Picked that up, and then I can't remember, somebody was on the other aisle and they yelled out, "Hey, they have Midwinter's Night Dram here." So I go put that other 3rd bottle that I had. I'm like, all right, I have to make decisions here. Midwinter's Night Dram is also one of my favorites. But yeah, came back with a solid group of bundle of bottles.
Absolutely.
And the other cool thing about that trip, I remember I took 2 or 3 bottles for us to drink while we were there. And I took a Blanton's bottle. And Blanton's is a big hit and miss. I'm not going to bash on it. Some people love it, some people hate it. I have quite a few of them. But what I found is, Blanton's is a single barrel, so they're all going to taste a little different. What I've found is the lower the rick house on it, the better it tastes. However, I took one to New Hampshire, and I think it was like a 36 on the rick house. And that was the best bottle of Blanton's I've ever, which is crazy.
It was amazing. And maybe it was experience, but I don't think it was. I think we shared it with several people after you left, because we stayed in Boston for about a week afterwards, and people absolutely loved that bottle. So one other quick thing I'd like to touch on, Tony, if you don't mind, is you've had an amazing opportunity on a few different occasions now to go to a barrel pick. And I think you recently did one in Tennessee. Can you tell us a little bit about what a barrel pick involves and why it's exciting?
So yes, so a barrel pick is when you get the opportunity to go either with a bourbon group or maybe with a liquor store owner or somebody that is in the industry, and they go in and they buy an entire barrel, and it gets bottled. And so you go to a distillery, and you will get to pick. It can be anywhere from 4 barrels to maybe 6 or 7 barrels. And you go there and you try each barrel, you sample them, and you knock out your approaches. You want to knock out the barrels that you like the least, right? So you want to get rid of your lower favorites. And then you narrow it down to maybe 2 or 3. And then you kind of either you go with the voting system. If let's say there's 5 guys, 10 guys, you'll all vote and say, hey, who wants to pick barrel number 1, 3, whatever. And so you figure out a scoring system, and whatever barrel you pick, you get the entire barrel. They bottle it for you, and typically they'll put your name. They'll put a sticker on it with your name, your bourbon group, or your store name, whatever it is. And every drop of juice that comes out of that barrel is bottled for you, and you get to buy all those barrels. Now you have to buy the entire barrel. So we went and did, I was lucky enough back in September, I went and did a Buffalo Trace, barrel pick. And for those of you guys on here that enjoy bourbon, you probably know who Freddie Johnson is. He's the head guide at Buffalo Trace. If you've ever watched the documentary, he's on there, has awesome stories. Anyways, when we got there, he ended up being our guide. We got a VIP tour of Buffalo Trace. It was awesome. And so that experience by itself was cool. This last one I just did a couple weeks ago, went to Nashville, it's a group called Southern Collective, and they're not actually a distillery. They purchase entire barrels from different distilleries. And so what they do is they'll go in and they work out deals. They'll buy barrels from whoever, Buffalo Trace, Maker's Mark, Bardstown, whoever. And then they store them, they age them, and then they turn around and sell them either as barrel picks or they bottle them within their own name, which is kind of cool because
it is cool.
It's it's a name that most people haven't heard of. And when you pour it, you're probably drinking something that could have been, a Weller, a BTAC, or something else.
And probably never going to get again. Right?
Exactly.
Like once you open that bottle and it's gone, it's gone.
Exactly.
There's something cool about drinking something so limited that's on a small run. We see that in the cigar industry with limited editions. Mm-hmm. We've been lucky enough to have some of the Amazon Basins. We recently had some of the Fuente Opus X limited editions that they released this year. And those become really cool opportunities. And then this year, like a couple of years ago, Tony and another friend of ours had the pleasure to go do a bottle pick with JT Mellick out of Louisiana. And I actually still have 2 of those bottles unopened in my wet bar because I've opened one and it's gone now, but I can't bring myself to open the other 2 just because I know once that juice is gone, it's gone.
Yeah, I bought 6 of those bottles and I think I'm down to 1.5.
I'll open the next one then.
All right.
That way we keep some around.
I have a quick a cool story. When I was in Kentucky at the Bourbon Trail, there was a bar there in Frankfurt that sells a lot of Dusties, like old, like really old. Like I'm talking like 1940s, 50s, 60s, maybe older bourbon. And made friends. I've always learned to make friends with the cook or your bartender or whoever. And so, anyways, we hit it off. We closed the bar down. He locked the door and let us stay there. He started bringing stuff out that he had never tried and wanted to share. And I mentioned that JT Mellick barrel pick. That was one of the bottles I took. And I ran down to our Airbnb and grabbed a couple bottles, brought that one back. And I ended up leaving the rest of that bottle of JT Mellick there. That's why I'm down to 1.5, because I left it there.
That's awesome.
And he was super happy and got his number. So whenever we go back to Kentucky, we'll have to stop by and visit. Maybe
That'd
still be there.
We got to make a trip soon.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So for those of you guys watching tonight, we have a couple of cool opportunities. So first, we're going to be giving away 2 Amazon basins tonight, a 2-pack to one of our viewers. So if you haven't already made a comment in the comment section, go ahead and make a comment. We have a randomizer that will choose between the comments that are made. And before we jump off tonight, we will announce who won the 2-pack of Amazon basin. Also, if you're following tonight and you're watching live, or you're watching us on a replay, between now and June 1st, if you follow us on our Facebook page, on our Instagram, or if you want to dive deeper into the conversation about food, bourbon, and premium cigars, you can join the Cigar Rebel community on Facebook and post pictures of what you're cooking, what you're drinking, what you're smoking, and help stir the conversation. In those, anytime you join or you tag someone or you tag the group, so you can just put on one of your posts like, hey, I was listening to Cigar Rebels podcast today, and tag one of our social media pages. Or you can tag a couple of buddies and go, hey, you got to check this podcast out. Anytime you put one of their names or your own, you'll be entered an additional time in to win. And on June 1st, we're going to give away a bottle of bourbon, a 5-pack of Cigar Rebel cigars. So you'll be the first person to own the first Cigar Rebel custom blend pack. And then also we're going to give away a 5-pack of the new Elevated Humidor custom blend. And so we've got a great opportunity. You can either win a bottle of bourbon or one of the 2 custom limited edition 5-packs. We were just talking about how cool it is to have a limited edition. On each of these custom blends, there's 1,000 of that blend made. When those cigars are gone, they're gone. With that, Mel, we're going to talk a little bit about Cigar Rebels going to release quarterly our own blends. We were just in the Dominican Republic about a month ago, blending the cigars for that first release. We've been smoking them. Some of our friends have smoked them, and we're really excited to bring those to you guys. And so as we begin to look through the next stages over this next few weeks, help us grow our audience, go onto our social media, subscribe here on YouTube, share, and let people know that you are a Cigar Rebel.
Absolutely. With that, we're going to go ahead, check back into our cigar here and our bourbons. I've finished all my bourbon, so it was a great pairing. And I got a good chance to sip on it while you're talking and sharing your love for bourbon. How are you guys feeling with the cigar and the bourbon together?
Absolutely. It's a great pairing. I'm going a little slower than normally. I'm a fast smoker, but I'm just trying to really enjoy this. I know there's 12 of these left for us total, and we're going to give 2 of them away tonight. So trying to enjoy that, but absolutely, again, those spices continue to drive forward the flavor. To me, I was expecting when I first got the 2025 release of Amazon Basin to be a really full-bodied cigar. It smokes way more like a medium plus to me until it gets into that third and the strength picks way up. At this point, it's really a medium-bodied, medium strength cigar that's really just got a lot of complex flavors. Something that really began to pick up in about this second third is almost a rye forward or a pumpernickel type of bread. And so it's almost that breadiness, that rye with a little bit of spice, kind of like the spice you get off of a rye bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
I love high rye. And whenever you pick that up, you can begin to get just those mouthfeel. So the inside of my lips are tingling, the sides of my tongue from that. And so really enjoy that experience with this bourbon.
Yeah.
The cigar.
I don't know if you planned that as a segue, but I was going to hand this over to Mel. This is a Midwinter's Night Dram.
Oh.
One of my favorite ryes as well. Everything they make is phenomenal. Also hard to find, but well worth it when you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I did have one more question too, talking about, you mentioned you travel a lot. Kevin and I travel a lot. We'll have a podcast about traveling with cigars, how we do that. For bourbon, is there anything special or anything specific you need to do if you're traveling with it, like bringing it back on a flight or anything? Obviously you can't carry it on, but for checking, is there anything specific to do to keep
So,
that all?
There are countries where you can't bring in any alcohol. That's usually why they have the duty free shops,
Yeah.
because they want to make the money, and I understand. I'll give you a prime example. We try to go to Cozumel at least once a year, and you can't take alcohol in. I learned that the hard way. A few years ago, I took a bottle of bourbon that I thought I was going to enjoy, and they confiscated it at the airport there in Mexico.
So they enjoyed it.
They enjoyed it. And so I learned my lesson. So I think every country has different regulations and laws, but yeah, I would definitely look into it. One thing I've learned is if you travel, I always enjoy finding local drinks and food, obviously food, but even alcohol or drink, whatever you enjoy. I like going there and just figuring out, well, what do you guys drink? Like, what is your go-to? And buy something there and bring it back. It's always great to bring that back and share it with your friends. Plus you help the locals out.
Yeah, so we were in Germany and Switzerland last summer, and the first thing there, Mel's sister asked us if we wanted to go to the local market and shop where the Germans shop.
Yeah.
And it was the coolest marketplace because they go to the store every day to 3 days because everything's so fresh and it just doesn't last like it does here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And the first bottle I ran across for $23 was Eagle Rare.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, that's what I'm drinking the rest of this trip. And so I didn't finish the bottle. We were there. We did a bunch of traveling, and I forgot to bring it with us when we left Germany, went to Switzerland for a week. But I enjoyed it both times we were in Germany. It was awesome. And we were outgoing. We shared a lot of cocktails that they were made locally that are just very different. And they use different sweeteners and different fruits than we do, which was absolutely excellent. We transition away a little bit from bourbon here for just a few minutes. One thing is, if you're watching this on replay, go ahead and do us a favor and down in the comments put replay fam. We would love to hear from you and just let us know that you've been watching. But we want to transition just for this last little segment, Mel, and tell us a little bit about why Cigar Rebel.
Yeah, so we, a little background for Kevin and I is we own a cigar company and a lounge, and we're starting this podcast. And we started out really kind of doing events for people who wanted cigars, weddings, businesses who needed cigars for golf tournaments. And as we dived into that, people were like, you should really, you should have a brand. You're so knowledgeable about this. These cigars are so great. You should really sell them to, the cigar community. So we started our line. And when we started our line, I was like, I'd really like to start a podcast. And through that, we also had a lounge. We were like, I don't remember what we said when we were planning it. The plan was always to have a brand, have a lounge, have a podcast. And as we kind of went through those events, people would be like, you should have a brand. And then we started a brand. They're like, you should have a lounge. And then we got the lounge and people are like, you should have a podcast. So it's funny. I love that story and people who have told us that, because that was on our long trajectory, long term. And it just didn't happen in that order. The lounge, I think we thought would be pushed way further out. And then we got the opportunity to open it with some friends. One of them, Tony, is one of the other owners of that lounge. And we were able to open the lounge, and that took up a substantial amount of time, which anyone who starts their own business or opens a shop, we expected it would take time, and you think it's going to take this much, and it takes this much. And so we kind of put the podcast on the back burner for that bit. Now the lounge has been open for enough time. It's running smoothly. And at the end of 24, probably even early 25, we're like, all right, now it's back to the podcast. Like, when can we get this going? We really want to do it. And so we had always known the podcast would be the Cigar Rebel podcast, because I think just with our background in the cigar industry and some of the things that we've done, people have been like, you guys are crazy. That's never going to work. And it's ended up working. And I think having the podcast to help grow and encourage the cigar community all across everywhere we've traveled, getting to meet people who smoke cigars in different countries, other parts of the state. The community is always so welcoming. Being able to be a part of that and encourage people on their cigar journey is something that I love doing. I love the cigar community we've built here. I love being able to experience it when we go to other places. And then there's a side note where also, if anyone tries to tell me what to do, it generally does not go well. So that just kind of goes in with the name as well. If you're like, don't do that, or you can't do this, because really I am pretty introverted. So this is outside of my comfort zone, but that doesn't mean that I couldn't do it or I shouldn't do it. So that's really, for me, that's kind of why the name is there, why we started it, just to have a positive effect and impact on the cigar community.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things too is people have kind of told us, hey, that's not going to work. You don't know what you're doing. How do you guys expect to grow? And one of the things for me, and Mel's this way a lot too, is that if you tell me you can't do that, it's impossible, or the data says, I'm just a big believer that I may not be, and am rarely the smartest guy in the room, but I'm going to outwork you. And so we had somebody that we were trying to help do some things that just said, hey, you guys don't know anything about this. It's stupid. Just let the professionals deal with it. And I came home that day and told Mel, I'm like, all right, look, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And by the end of that night, we had a business plan laid out. We had a website initially developed. And so it was just kind of that piece to run forward. And then the other part around Cigar Rebels is we want to build a Cigar Rebel community, because let's be honest, if you look at our society, it's 5 to 10% of our society that loves cigars. And it's even 5 or 10% of them that are truly enthusiasts about cigars. And so when you find a community and you are into something, say it's muscle cars, say it's unique 1930s to 50s BMWs, if that's your thing, when you find somebody who also loves that particular hobby, it's like you've found your family. And we want to help grow the Cigar Rebel family, because the reality is, if you're a cigar enthusiast, you're a little bit of a rebel at heart when it comes to our society. Mm-hmm. And we want to grow that. This is a podcast that isn't going to be about us. It's going to be a podcast about growing that community. It's going to be a podcast about talking around the things that you're interested in and you're wanting to do. We get questions all the time around, what do you do when you're traveling? We travel 150 to 200 days a year. And I smoke the same cigar every morning. We just checked a couple of days ago because a buddy was at the house. It's been just over 1,200 days that I've smoked the same cigar every morning, regardless if we're in Europe, if we're in Mexico, if we're somewhere in the United States, or if I'm sitting on my patio back home. And it's because I'm going to find a place to enjoy my morning routine, which is coffee and a cigar and to read. And that's something I do every single day. And that's just not something that a normal person does. And so we want to help do that and help you grow in your journey and figure out what it is and how to be a part of a cigar community. Maybe you live near a local shop. If you're watching this live or maybe on the replay, drop your local shop in the comments. Maybe we'll do a petite cast from there. So petite casts are things that we do. They'll be released twice a month on the weeks we're not going live. And then they'll be around those questions about how do you travel with a cigar? What does it mean to go from seed to smoke? What does it mean to be vertically integrated? Different topics that really won't go into the live conversation, but we'll continue to share them with you. We have a few recorded already that are going to be released over the next few weeks that we're smoking the test blends for Cigar Rebel. We want you along that journey as we're smoking them and testing them. It's going to be a great opportunity for you to learn a little bit about what we're doing here at Cigar Rebel and how you can join the Cigar Rebel community.
Yep, that's perfect.
That's awesome.
Sums it up nicely.
Yeah. And on that note, before I forget, Mel, Kevin, you cannot. There's no way you can ever give me another Amazon basin. You can't do it. Go home and think about that.
All right. So, guys, that's our show for today. But before we go, let's choose who our Amazon basin winner is. And so we had a randomizer pick out a number. And so Roper Brooks, you have won the Amazon Basin. We know how to get in touch with you. We'll make sure those get in your hand. For all those that commented tonight, we appreciate it. Keep it going. As a reminder, go out there and tag a friend or a buddy or share our Instagram, our Facebook. Invite people to the Cigar Rebel community. Make sure you subscribe right here on YouTube. We'll be back in 2 weeks with our next live cast on the 2nd and 4th Monday of every single month. Mel, do you have any thoughts?
That's our show for today. So thank you guys for sticking with us. Tony, it was great to have you on this first show, and thank you for hosting us and sharing the amazing bourbon. I mean, couldn't think of a better place.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm super excited for you guys. And I've been lucky enough to try all of their cigars, and I'm telling you, they're phenomenal. So you guys are doing great things, and this is super exciting to watch you start here, because I can only imagine where it's going to be a few months from now.
Awesome. We appreciate it. Well, guys, you have a good night. Check back in. We'll be live in just 2 weeks, but don't worry. Next Monday night is Petite Cast number 1. Same time, same channel, right here on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe.